So in this video, I am going to cover the burning question that I get asked all the time and that I see people post online all the time, which is which attachment style is the worst? So I'm going to give you a short answer and then I'm going to give you a long answer. And then we're going to talk about why, because there's actually some really important learning opportunities in here for you. If you even clicked on this video, there's something exciting, a golden nugget for you to learn or take away from this. So the short answer of this video is no attachment style is the worst. It may be more difficult to be an insecurely attached style than a securely attached style. And attachment styles are the result of trauma. If we have an insecurely attached style, there's attachment trauma that exists there. So what I want you to know that's a really important golden nugget is that each insecure attachment style is likely to struggle more with other insecure attachment styles that represent their shadow traits, and that really represent these parts of themselves that they haven't integrated yet. So we're going to cover what that means. You're going to learn why you came to this video thinking for sure you had an attachment style in mind that you thought was the worst and you were trying to come here to get it confirmed. And instead we're going to turn this into a cool learning opportunity where you can actually dive into understanding why we feel so triggered by certain attachment styles, what that means. And before I go into all of this, I just want to say one thing, which is that every single attachment style who has an insecure attachment style, so of course our anxious preoccupied, our fearful avoidance, our dismissive avoidance, they have all been through hard things. And I think it's really important to keep that in mind. And it's really not their fault that they are an insecure attachment style. It is their responsibility. It is absolutely our responsibility because nobody can heal it for them except themselves. You can get resources, tools, help, support, therapy, counseling, coaching, you name it. And that is still you ultimately helping yourself, right? It's really you doing that work and being able to go in there and show up and pour into these things and use the tools and do all those different things. So, it's really each individual's responsibility, but I do want to be really clear that every single attachment style arrives at, their attachment style output because of painful experiences they went through that developed really painful subconscious beliefs and, distorted relationships to their needs from time to time and different struggles to emotionally regulate that each attachment style has uniquely. And according to integrated attachment theory, each attachment style struggles with specific core wounds, unmet needs, painful emotional regulation patterns, a struggling relationship to their boundaries in a whole bunch of different ways, depending on your style, poor communication patterns for a variety of different reasons, and it doesn't have to be like overall poor, but definitely some challenging ones, and then painful coping mechanisms or behaviors that may need to be upgraded, things like activating or deactivating strategies, right? So with that being said, what you really want to take away from this video is number one, please empathize in the comments with all the attachment styles. Please be kind. Please understand that every attachment style, when we say mean things or we bash them or things like that, that I sometimes see in the comments, which overall people are like literally amazing. But we definitely do have a little bit of stuff when we have probably people that stop in here from time to time as a new channel viewer can be kind of mean or harsh to somebody that that they've been through things with. Please just keep in mind that like that person was a little child once that couldn't get their needs met, that really struggled, that felt helpless, that felt really sad. And, they developed all these patterns to just keep themselves safe and to keep themselves protected from ever having to feel like that again. And if you are an insecure attachment style and you reflect on your experience, you'll know that that's part of what happened for you. And so just remembering that just because it looks different, just because somebody else's coping mechanisms or patterns are different than yours in the way that you might have adapted doesn't mean that, they didn't go through a very similar painful experience at the root. So just wanted to say that first. And then here's a really important golden nugget, which is that the one that you think is the worst and that you're triggered the most by is usually representing the traits that you have to integrate the most in your own healing journey to become secure. So it's very interesting, right? Now, so we'll break this down into a few different ways. Okay. Let's say, for example, that we have an anxious preoccupied. And let's say that anxious preoccupied is really frustrated with their dismissive avoidant partner. And as a general rule, we will see that APs, anxious preoccupieds, are most often triggered by DAs and most often hold on to, they can be by FAs too, but they tend to have like a bit more of a forgiving relationship to fearful avoidance. And they tend to really carry the dismissive avoidant relationship and frustrations with them for longer. And the reason for this is because it's your shadow, right? So watch this. You carry the pain and the frustration from that person for longer or like more harshly because the dismissive avoidant and how they treated you represents the way you treat yourself, your own feelings, your own emotions, your own needs, your own boundaries. You constantly dismiss them, minimize them. Instead, prioritize other people and people pleasing them at the expense of yourself. So the dismissive avoidant, when they come in and they treat you that way, it hurts extra. It cuts more deeply because it mirrors back to you the repressed aspects of yourself that you need to integrate in order to become healed and to become securely attached yourself. And so you'll see anxious, preoccupied individuals in relationships, they really struggle the most with DAs. Absolutely, you can struggle with FAs. Absolutely, there's aspects of them that they also mirror to you, right? An example being like the inconsistency, the hot and cold. Sometimes you can have those aspects of self. The betrayal of trust at times that the fearful avoidance sometimes have in the relationship with the AP through that incongruency, through being so hot and cold or being there, and then that intermittent reinforcement of being withdrawn. There can be so many aspects of that that are also mirrored to you for your healing, but that tends to be where they get stuck the most. Fearful avoidance. Who do they tend to struggle with the most in relationships? These themes are not quite as strong because FAs obviously have the anxious side and the DA side. So they don't have like as much of this like one other attachment style they struggle with, but you can absolutely see how the things that you do struggle with in people are still your shadow. So, for example, the fearful avoidant tends to violate their boundaries all the time to please others as well. And they really get frustrated. Well, hold on, I won't tell you that part yet. They violate their own boundaries to people please others. And fearful avoidance or disorganized attachment styles, they also tend to go through this sort of like hamster wheel of putting so many expectations on themselves and so much pressure on themselves. And then they get so triggered when other people put pressure or are expectant of them. And that tends to be something that triggers them huge about relationships with APs. Those are the complaints I would see the most in my practice from FAs dating AP partners. It could also be like the breaking of trust if they felt like the AP was trying to make them jealous or, gain some kind of reaction from them that way. Sometimes that was also because, look, fearful avoidants break their own trust all the time by, deprioritizing their needs, not enforcing their boundaries until they're really angry, like leaving so many boundaries out for long periods of time, not being considerate of their feelings and taking themselves into consideration when they make a commitment to something. These are all important components of trust. So, anyways, without going too far down the rabbit hole, by the way, I'll keep going through the other attachment styles, but if you want to do a really deep dive into this, we have a course. It's about 2 hours in length. It's called the Shadow Work course. It's like one of my favorite courses at PDS. It's really, really powerful and will help you like integrate all these parts of what triggers you in other people or other attachment styles and actually heal them and integrate those traits and do that reprogramming work from a shadow work point of view within yourself. So if you want to check it out for free for 7 days, you can use the link down below in the description box. And it's more than enough time to get through the course within 7 days. So check it out. Okay, so fearful avoidance on the dismissive side, dismissive avoidance can minimize the fearful avoidance needs. They can dismiss the fearful avoidant. They can make them feel unimportant or like they don't matter. And again, this is totally what fearful avoidance can often do in the relationship to themselves. So again, like depending on who you think is the worst and what you're stuck on, this is often like the experience of a relationship showing you to yourself. Relationships are mirrors into the relationship with how you treat yourself. So whatever you're most triggered by, stuck on, is often a huge representation of what's going on for you underneath the surface, and also has these golden nuggets that you can extract out and use for your own healing journey to fast track to becoming secure. Our dismissive avoidance. What do we see with dismissive avoidance? They tend to get triggered by the anxious, preoccupied, violating their boundaries, even if it's by accident, but then making them feel trapped, right? Or helpless or powerless. And guess what happens, right? Dismissive avoidance, they're in this really intense space of not being able to listen to their own emotions, not being able to regulate their own emotions, get in touch with their own emotions. And that leaves them feeling like they're in this space of being emotionally trapped, helpless, and powerless. And so that can be a huge thing. Another huge component with like the violating of boundaries is dismissive avoidance when they spend time with themselves. They're not really with themselves, right? They're not seeing and hearing themselves. They're like usually using creature comforts to just evade themselves further or avoid themselves further and avoid their feelings further. And that really represents that like lack of being seen, heard, understood that they experience when an AP violates their boundaries, right? It's like the AP is not seeing, hearing, understanding their feelings, their boundaries, how they're being impacted. Huge mirror into the relationship to themselves. For fearful avoidance, where dismissive avoidance gets stuck, and I would say dismissive avoidance tend to, it's interesting, right? Because like APs tend to be triggered most by DAs. DAs actually tend to be triggered most by FAs. And I would say if there was some kind of leaning as a whole, again, it's like 60-40. It's not a huge thing. FAs tend to get triggered most by APs. So you have this like really interesting little, cycle that's happening between the different styles, but DAs tend to get triggered the most by FAs. Again, I would just say by a little bit overall as a general rule, because they really don't like how FAs can be shaming and critical. And guess what your shadow is, DA? You tend to be the most shaming and harsh and critical of yourself and really have those shame wounds. So they are mirroring back to you that you need to go inwards and do that inner work in order to heal. So, this is such an important topic. I can't even like say how powerful shadow work is too, from an insight point of view, an emotional literacy point of view, a joyful point of view, an increasing your self-esteem point of view, and a really, really positively impacting your relationships point of view. So I have some exciting news, which is that we are doing $1,000 off of our lifetime membership sale to the Personal Development School, which means you get access to literally everything at PDS for your entire rest of your life. Essentially, that entails all of our different courses you have lifetime access to. I do 4 live webinars a week, every single week. You can access them ongoing, and you get access to all of our daily community events. So I'd love to see you on the other side, and you can access it by using the link in the description box below. That is it for today. If you're new to this channel, hello, by the way, and welcome. I hope you enjoyed this video. I put daily videos out about the subconscious mind, integrated attachment theory, which is the new attachment theory, your core wounds, your needs, your beliefs, your emotional patterns, and really deep, powerful healing, that really targets the subconscious mind, because that's where real change takes place. So if you don't want to miss any daily videos, I literally have daily videos every single day, 365 days of the year that go out for you. And so you can subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know any other questions you have down below, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos.